Regular council meeting for June 23rd, 2015 to order at 10 a.m. I'm just going to make a couple of brief comments because we have a bit of a fuller agenda today and we have members of the public. Thank you for coming. You're very welcome to be here. We have two items on the agenda today where we're going to be accepting public comment before the council discussion. And those two are the annual municipal report and the Wolf in the Fog liquor license amendment application. There are no other opportunities for public input during today's meeting until the very end, after most of the business is done. Everybody has the right to work in a respectful and civil workplace and meeting place, and that includes the council chamber. So I ask everybody to respect this, and at any time that you're addressing council, to please keep your comments. Criticism is accepted, but to please keep the comments respectfully delivered. Thank you, everybody. And I'll ask now for a motion to adopt the agenda, please.
Move.
Thank you, Councillor McMaster, seconded by Councillor Blanchette. All in favor? Thank you. Motion carried. And the minutes from the regular council meeting held June 9th.
Move adoption. Second.
Thank you, Councillor McMaster, seconded by Councillor Anderson. Any questions? Okay, all in favor? Thank you. Motion is carried. No business arising from the minutes. I have just one announcement to make, and that is that on Saturday I had the privilege of attending the Ucluelet Secondary School graduation ceremony. On behalf of the District of Tofino, I was able to offer my congratulations to all the graduating students. There were 38 of them, and 2 received District of Tofino scholarships, and they were Kimberly Castillo and Patrice Hansen. So it was great to be there, and Councillor Thurgood was also there because his granddaughter graduated. So yeah, it was a really, really lovely afternoon. And then we'll move into correspondence for information. So first we have an item from the Ministry of Finance regarding the amendment to the Municipal and Regional District Hotel Room Tax.
Receive.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson, seconded by Councillor McMaster. To receive any questions from this? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Thank you. Motion is carried. Second is correspondence from the CBT regarding the 2014 annual report.
Move receipt.
Thank you, Councillor McMaster, seconded by Councillor Thurgood. Any questions from this? Okay, all in favor? Thank you. Motion carried. And last is correspondence from Margaret Eady regarding the Wolf in the Fog liquor license amendment application.
Move receipt.
Thank you, Councillor McMaster. Seconded by Councillor Bart. Any questions from this? All right, all in favor? Thank you. Motion carried. Under correspondence requiring action, we have a letter from the Minister of Community, Sport and Cultural Development regarding UBCM meetings. And the online meeting system is up and running and they are accepting our meeting requests. So I had a bit of a discussion with some of you. Thank you for those that gave your feedback. And then I've suggested to Council that we meet with the Ministers of Aboriginal Relations and Reconciliation, the Minister of Advanced Education and the Minister of Environment, and that we try to meet with the staffs in the Ministry of Health, Jobs, Tourism and Skills Training and Transportation and Infrastructure. So we could have a motion to that effect. I'm happy to discuss this. If you have other suggestions or ideas that have come to light since we met, then that's fine too. Councillor Thick?
Yeah, we need a motion to, what I would like to do is sort of create a plan or, formulate our ideas more concretely, perhaps at our next July 25th meeting. Can we have a fuller discussion at that time? Because I've already formulated some ideas with regard to the discussion with Minister of Advanced Education. So I would like an opportunity perhaps to present those ideas to all of you and get your feedback and see if that's the right track.
So I think at this point it would be appropriate to direct staff to submit the requests that we know. There doesn't have to be a lot of information that goes with those requests, and we do have time to develop that kind of thinking, and there'll be more opportunity to talk about it, but we need to get the requests in before July 21st. Councillor Bart?
Yeah, it says to be fleshed out in greater detail later, so that's good, but I'll just move that we direct staff to request the meetings as noted.
Okay, thank you.
Second.
Seconder, okay. Any discussion on that? Any questions around that? So Councillor Thick, yes, we will have an opportunity to flesh this out. Okay. But at this point, at least the request will go in. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'll call the question then. All in favor? Thank you. Motion carried. Great. Okay, so moving into reports, our first report is a verbal one from Councillor Anderson on the Vancouver Island Regional Library.
Yes, it was June 13th, the last meeting of the board that I attended, and just this morning I emailed everyone that agenda, so you needn't look at it right now, but I'd like to direct councillors' attentions to the facilities report as part of that agenda. And that gives an update on all the different facilities in the library system that are currently undergoing either renovation or construction. And it gives councillors some idea of what's happening out there in the system in terms of getting new libraries and upgrading facilities, and also bringing some facilities are not completely up to code or part. Those kind of issues are also dealt with that. And I think that as we look into a new library for Tofino, I think it's good to keep abreast of what's going on in the system and some of the processes involved in getting a new branch. Of note at the meeting as well was a delegation from union members who brought forward some grievances, complaints about the new library hours that the board supported and adopted at the previous board meeting in April, I believe it was. And what happened was the board and from staff, they figured out a way of bringing more open days and more open hours to many of the rural communities, and a lot of them were only serviced by maybe 1 day a week service. And to do this without any impact on the budget at all, it meant shifting some hours out of some of the more like Nanaimo and the larger city branches, and using those hours in the rural branches. So this created some layoff notices and created some shortened hours, which meant some employees were severely impacted by it. And the numbers are not great. It was about 7 or 8 employees out of a total of over 300 employees in the system. But still, those grievances were brought forward, and a request to delay the implementation of the new hours till September. They're currently to take effect July 1st. The board had an in-camera session where we were apprised of legal ramifications of different actions we might take, and decided not to go with putting off the implementation of the new hours. And the reasoning for that, largely from what I gathered from the board, was that those issues could be dealt with the implementation of the hours, and putting off changing the hours till September would mean that the kids in those areas wouldn't get as much of their summer reading programs delivered, etc. That's why the July 1st hours change was decided on. So that was quite significant in terms of, I think it's the first time I've ever seen a delegation of more than 1 or 2 people at the library board. So those grievances, we were assured by the staff, would be able to be dealt with without changing the implementation of the hours to July 1st. So that's what was supported. The other items of business that were notable were a request for proposals went out for a design build new library branch in Souk. The public consultation program is in progress over the summer. with all communities in the system being consulted on the strategic plan, which will then deliver us, it's a 5-year strategic plan that will take us into the next 5-year financial plan as well. So the library branch is going around to all communities. They were here last Thursday night, and thanks to those who could attend. I was there as well. It turned out to be a little confusing, the process, but I think we got some good results at the end of it. So, other business was mainly routine business. We received the auditor's report and the consolidated financial statements for 2014, and that's the bulk of the board meeting.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions for Councillor Anderson? Councillor Blanchett?
I've heard from some local constituents that are a little disappointed that the hours change thing came through without any apparent local consultation. Was there any discussion around the board table about locally consulting?
No, the plan was delivered from staff, and it was supported largely because it made such a difference to so many of the smaller communities. So.
Because here, after July 1st, there will be identical library hours here in Ucluelet, which does lead to some impacts. There's kind of used to be if you really needed something, you could go to Ucluelet on a day that they were open, but Tofino wasn't, and vice versa. And now that's not possible. And there's some issues with staff covering each other off that will be more difficult now too.
Well, I can take that message back to the CEO there, and that's the best I can do.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Yes,
I
Councillor.
just wondered how many people came to the public consultation. Is there one outcome that you could share with us?
I think there was about 16. We broke into groups of 4, and there were at least 4 groups. Greg and Councillor McMaster were there as well. And I would say that the outcome was largely about the facility, about its shortcomings, and so a lot of the talk was about what type of facility we might want, what types of services. So a better kids area that's more separated from the rest of the library was natural light, larger space, more inviting kind of space in general, and more community connection, I guess, and working with other groups in the community was brought forward. And then some of the issues that came out of the recent library hours changes were also brought forward from the public.
Thank you.
Councillor Blanchett?
It might be worth mentioning that there is an online survey that I believe is still active. So that can be found on, I don't know where, on Facebook is where I found it.
Really? Is it connected to the VRL?
Yes, it's
Yeah.
a VIRL survey.
For people who weren't able to go to the open house. Good.
Thanks for that.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. Okay, moving on, our next report is the food primary liquor license amendment application from Wolf in the Fog, and I believe that Jane is going to start us off with a short presentation, and then at that point, after Jane is done, we will undertake public input, and then council will have its deliberation.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. So this is going to be a short presentation. I'm just going to do a quick review of the liquor licensing process in British Columbia, and then talk a bit about the role of local government, including the rules for gathering and examining views of the nearby residences and businesses, and then just point out a couple of things unique to this particular application. So the approving body for all primary food liquor licenses is the province through the Liquor Control and Licensing Branch. Some types of application require community input. Community input is required for what the legislation refers to as patron participation entertainment, So that's dancing and karaoke. And also community input is required for liquor service past midnight. The purpose of this community input is to make sure that concerns about noise, nuisance, and any other kinds of impact on the immediate community are considered before the branch approves an application. So these requirements for community input can either be met by the local government or they can be done by the Liquor Control and Licensing Branch. The way the legislation is set up, local government basically has a right of first refusal. And this particular application, council looked at it, I guess about a month ago, maybe 2 months ago now, and directed staff to do gather the community input. So the role of local government then for gathering the input is to gather views of nearby residents and businesses, and then comment on mandatory criteria, and then they need to submit a recommendation to the board on whether or not the application should be approved. And in this particular application, there are requests for 2 amendments, so council may approve both, one or none. So the mandatory considerations are the potential for noise, impact on the surrounding community, and the potential to shift the focus of operation from primarily serving food to primarily serving liquor. Provincial regulations and guidelines say that the input from the community needs to be limited to just the nearby residences and businesses. The legislation doesn't specify what that looks like, but they do give some guidelines saying that it typically should be within a radius of the subject property. District of Tofino does have a bylaw that gives us some more direction and says that the notice has to be distributed to owners and occupants within 60 meters of the subject property. In practice, we go out to 75 meters. The bylaw also says that we need to refer as needed to RCMP and then the applicable departments. So in this case, we went to bylaw and licensing as well as planning department. And then we also run some ads in the Westerly newspaper. Provincial guidelines and court rulings that we've had for examining the views have directed that local governments must take care not to consider any irrelevant factors, so just limited to the criteria. And particularly we've had court rulings saying that you can't take into consideration economic impact by current license holders. And the council has absolute discretion in determining how much weight you want to put on different views of residents versus businesses. So the potential for noise, one of the criteria, so council needs to consider the potential for the proposed change, which in this case is to serve liquor for an extra hour and a half each night, to result in increased noise and disturbances to those in the immediate area. Impact on the community, local government is again asked to weigh the potential benefits of the proposed change against any potential negatives to those in the immediate area. And those are identified in the report. In terms of focus of operation, consider the potential for the proposed changes to shift the focus of operation from primarily food to primarily liquor service. So right now with this current application, and this did not need to have community input, Wolf on the Fog can serve liquor until midnight. And they also are currently licensed to provide patron non-participation entertainment. So this is live music. By law, that must end at 1 a.m. The proposed change lets them serve liquor until 1:30 a.m. And now that they're getting patron participation, the live music and the dancing must both end at midnight. Now, Liquor Control and Licensing Branch doesn't typically put conditions on the licenses themselves, and if we are going to ask for that, it needs to be done up front. So I talked to the branch about that we have this patio license agreement, and so they are willing, should council wish to approve the extended hours of service, to put a condition right into the license that the patio must be closed by 10 p.m. Any questions from council?
Any questions for Jane from council? Councillor Thurgood.
Could you just go back to, you mentioned
currently, they can go till 1 o'clock?
Yeah,
And
so
then
the
if- but
current license, which did not require community input, allows them to have patron non-participation entertainment, which in this case is live music. And that by law must end at 1 a.m. So by adding on the dancing, by law, both the dancing and the live music must now end at midnight. And part of the rationale for doing that is to help ensure that primary food establishments don't start functioning more like cabarets or nightclubs, which would require a primary food license.
Okay, anyone else? Yes, Councillor Fick.
No, I'm just going to,
Okay, so at this point, if no one has any
Teresa.
questions for Jane, then I'm gonna ask members of the public, if you wish to address council, you may do so, and just come up to the podium and state your name and your address, and if no one wishes to speak to the council, that's okay too. So if you wish, yep, come on up. So just state your name and your address, please. This all goes back to the liquor licensing branch.
Now, am I able to speak to it, or am I just able
No,
to ask
you're able to
questions?
speak to it. Just let us know your name
Of
and your
course.
address.
My name is Andre McGilvery. I live at 1302 Lynn Road in Tofino. I've lived here for 5 years, and I'm the business manager at Wolf and the Fog at 150 4th Street. So Mayor Osborne and councillors, first of all, thank you very much for all your advice and assistance in having us put together this proposal. Everyone's been extremely wonderful with their assistance and patience as we try and find the right avenue to meet in the middle, working with the community to make this make sense and provide what I'm sure all of you have heard many times, an opportunity to provide a restaurant option post-midnight in Tofino for both locals and visiting travelers. The comments are stacked against us, as you've probably already seen. Public opinion is not on our side for this particular resolution request amendment. We are looking foremost to provide a restaurant option, not a bar, not a pub. I'm not looking to focus on liquor sales as a sole means of its existence. As we've seen, this new amendment would allow us to terminate at midnight for any live music and patron participation, and then move on to a close doing a regular service. This is what I consider to be a wind down time. I've been in the food and beverage business for 28 years. I've overseen dozens of liquor licenses for the last 24 of those 28 years. And I've always known that the number one concern is community first, otherwise you have nothing. With this wind down time, I've seen it in the past work very well where crowds disperse at a more spread out perspective as opposed to one big crowd leaving at the very end of service. It's worked well in the past for me. I expect it would work well again. We have made several changes to contain any of the current noise with glassing in our patio, adding sunscreens to soften the surfaces and hold in any additional noise in that regards. And we are looking to provide shuttle service as of July the 1st. Its hours of operation begin at 4:30 p.m., allowing people to not bring their vehicle downtown and take up coveted parking. And that shuttle service would remain active until the last patron is home, safe and sound. That begins regardless of this outcome. Wolf in the Fog is definitely community first. I think that we've showcased that as best to our ability that we can. We've had extremely good communications with our neighbors, and any issues that have come to our attention, we've worked diligently to find quick and permanent solution. The residents and the businesses' opinions should be respected, of course, and we'll do anything that we possibly need to have an exchange of ideas and options to rectify any concerns that are currently being brought forth. Today is our 1-year anniversary to the day. We opened on June the 23rd, 2014. looking back over this anniversary, we have had one call to the RCMP due to a noise complaint. I do believe it was on opening night last year, so it was a year ago today. Other than that, I'll keep it short and sweet. I know we have lots on the agenda. We obviously want to provide this for Tofino, and continue to, of course, just progress this beautiful spot as best we can and provide that option. We really love for it to be considered. Thank you for the time.
Thank you very much, Andre. Did anybody else wish to address council? Okay. So I'll look to council now. Councillor Fitch.
Do we first need to receive the report as it's on the agenda?
No, it's on the agenda and we've adopted the agenda, so we can go right into discussion and any motions that council wishes to make, and we'll consider them.
Okay,
Councillor McMaster?
for the purpose of this discussion, I'll move that we not approve the request to extend hours of liquor license past midnight and not approve the request for patron participation and entertainment in the form of dancing.
Is there a seconder?
I'll second that.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded. Is there discussion on this? Councillor Thurgood.
I definitely agree with the first part of it, not extending the liquor license past midnight. I'm not fully in agreement with banning patron participation, entertainment in the form of dancing. It was mentioned in one of the appendices that it would, if that was allowed, it could be a venue for small weddings, and I think that's a valid thing to be offered. That's why I asked about the extra hours of when Ms. Armstrong was doing the presentation. It doesn't allow them to go beyond the midnight. Is that correct? If the patron participation
Is approved.
is
Yes.
approved. Yeah. So I don't agree with the. I agree with the restricting the licensing to midnight, but I'm open to allowing the entertainment portion application.
Thank you, Councillor Thurgood. Councillor McMaster.
I'll address that. 50% of the residents have complained about the noise in letters to council. As soon as you have entertainment where you have audience participation, whether it's dancing or karaoke, the music level has to go up. People don't, just to compete with the noise of people. So if you're worried about noise, I don't think you can support it.
Anyone else? Councillor Bart.
Thank you. I appreciate the efforts the Welcome Fog has made to remediate, on any issues around noise and such, but I do think the community is pretty clear. And really, if we're going to have places that are open for dance until the wee small hours, we need to build them for that purpose. I just don't think it's appropriate in neighborhoods to have places that are built for one purpose used for another purpose that's so impactful. And the remediations don't work. We've known that from certainly the experience of the Legion when they've tried to downplay the impact of noise and such. And people open doors. There's all kinds of things. And one of the things around the sustainability, around the tourism economy, is that we have to be really mindful of our impacts on people for a sense of their well-being in the tourism economy. And these kinds of things, I think, stress residents and diminish the quality of life because their right to rest and that kind of thing is impeded. So I think people are clear, and it's unfortunate, but I can't support the application.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Dick?
Yeah, I would echo Councillor Bart's comments, and we were asked specifically by the Liquor and Licensing Branch to consider only, or there's 2 mandatory criteria, and they are noise and community impact, and I believe we've heard from the community residents that are less than 75 meters, and I need to support what they said. I don't live less than 75 meters, but I support them. And the other thing that I found very interesting in the letters is just the mention of and this is no disrespect to the wolf in the fog at all, but I think what's really emerging is people in this town are standing up and saying, we want to have the kind of people, you know, who are coming here because they want to be up at 7 and going hiking and kayaking and surfing, and I really thank the people for writing, you know, not just to put the cap on something, but this is the kind of people we want to encourage to come here, and that's the kind of people I think we are. So I have to go with the residents' views, and for that reason I don't support. And to Councillor Thurgood's comments, it says specifically in there that we are, as a council, to consider not anything irrelevant, but we are to consider these 2 criteria and these 2 criteria only. And so that's why I will not support the move to approve.
Okay, thank you. Unless somebody has something different to say, I think I'll just call the question. Yeah. Councillor Blanchette?
I want to commend Wolf in the Fog for doing what they've done over the last year to address community concerns. And I think to add to what Councillor Thick said, we do have apparently, and this was reflected in a similar application we had a month or 2 ago, a segment in this town which does get off work late at 11 o'clock or so, and it would, I think they're worth catering to. It's not a huge segment perhaps, but it seems to be a definite market segment. They're worth catering to, and those are the ones who, in the absence of other alternatives, may wind up on the beach at midnight with a bonfire and you know, a stack of Lucky or whatever. I wish that we had some kind of an entertainment district where noise wasn't a problem, where we could send those people, but we don't. Our businesses and our residences seem to be pretty strongly intermingled in Tofino. So much as I would like to support this application, given the views of nearby residents, I'm afraid I can't either.
Okay then, I'm going to call the question. All in favor of the motion? Motion to deny, yeah. Everyone's clear. Okay, any opposed? None? All right, the motion is carried. Thank you. And Councillor Thick, you're right, we did need to receive the report. I apologize, I just flipped the recommendations in my mind. So if someone would please move receipt of the staff report.
Move receipt.
Second.
Thank you, Councillors Thick and McMaster. All in favor? Thank you. Motion carried. All right. So moving on then, our next item is the District of Tofino 2014 Annual Municipal Report. And Jean, did you have anything that you needed to say in front of this, or it's pretty straightforward, I think? No. Okay, so this is the annual municipal report that we produce each year, and if there is anyone in the audience who wishes to make a comment on the annual municipal report, you're welcome to do so. And seeing none, I will look to council then and ask for a motion to receive it.
So moved to receive.
Thank you, Councillor Bart, seconded by Councillor Thick. Councillor Bart?
Yes, thank you. I just have a request of staff. I think just generally with reports, if we could get them outside of the agenda package so that, you know, in a PDF format, we can file them. And like, I like to keep my annual report. It's very hard to extract from.
There is a way to do that on the system, and I would be happy to show you.
Okay, but,
Yep.
you know, it'd also be, just send us the report that says another way to do it, because there are so many. Anyway, that's.
Thank you. All right, any discussion on this? Yes, Councillor Blanchard.
I just wanted to mention that I've never read an annual report before, and it is packed with really good information. It's basically a 10-page précis of exactly everything that went on in the district over the last year. So kudos to staff.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? All right, I'll call the question in. All in favor? Thank you. Motion is carried. And thanks very much to our staff for pulling that together again. Jane takes the lead on that. Thank you, Jane. Okay, the next item is the District of Tofino Strategic Plan, 2015 to 2018. And I think we have a little verbal report from Bob first, and then we can discuss the plan. Thank you.
It is indeed a little verbal report. Your Worship, a month ago, Council had a presentation from me regarding the strategic plan. At that time, Council asked for a number of changes, the most significant of which is that we amalgamate the strategic plan as well as the action plan. That's been done here. The second change that's significant is around the area of economic development on page 12. We've dealt with some questions about education economy with some simplified wording, and that's really some of the changes that have been made. I'm happy to answer any questions Council may have. Also be delighted if we could adopt this. We're already kind of working from it anyway, as I think Council would expect, but it'd be nice to have this piece kind of sealed, and we will, the next step will be, we'll go to publishing it with all of these words in it, but in a slightly nicer format with more graphic in it.
Okay, thank you for making that clear. Right. Councillor Brooke?
Thank you. I just have a couple of comments, because
Sure.
I think we're safeguarded by virtue of the fact that we're revisiting this in 2 years, and that we are referring to the V2A report. But my concern is we've done the Civic Center plan, we've done the Horticulture Master Plan, the Heritage Master Plan, the Public Art Policy, that kind of work. And one of the concerns always that people have is the work doesn't get shelved. And it isn't kind of on the radar as prominently because we have more pressing things with waste management and so forth. But I'm just wondering if our CAO can comment that.
Well, we did have a discussion about this, I think, a month ago, and did try to provide some sense. We have adopted plans, and because they don't appear here doesn't mean that they get forgotten. I think you said it very well. We do have some more pressing matters. As time allows, things like there I know are important to many people in the community, like arts and culture. To put personal bias in it, those sorts of things make it the kind of community that I like to live in. We don't want to forget those things, and as time allows, we'll try to work those into our work plans. And yes, we do revisit this in 2 years, and so if things aren't going well, the idea of art won't go away, I'm sure.
Thank you. Councillor Dick?
To Councillor Barrett's point, is it possible that we put the links in and an appendix on the last page so we have it all there? So if we're reading it, we can just, especially if it's on an iPad, we could just refer to it? Is there a way to, without embedding the different reports, is there a way to highlight, link, so that we understand that all of these things have gone into this document and this level of thinking? Just a question.
I don't see why not. There could be a page at the end that just has a list of all the current, all the current plans, and all of them, and then you can open this up on your iPad, like you said, and have a quick link to, or anyone who does that.
Perfect.
Okay, yeah, and I know, Councillor, I think you had a few minor edits that you wanted to suggest, and so because as Bob said, it's still, once we adopt the plan, it still needs to be prettied up, so to speak. We'll have the opportunity to make those small edits.
Yeah, if there are edits that Council that are non-substantive,
Yeah.
Council wants to send those to me in the next few days, I'd be happy to get our publisher, as it were, to include those.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Somebody like to make a motion? Councillor Dick?
That Council adopt the District of Tofino 2015 to 2018 strategic plan.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Councillor Spick. Interested? Any final discussion on this? All right, I'll call the question. All in favor? Thank you. Motion is carried. The plan is adopted, and thank you to everybody who put a lot of work into this, council and senior staff. And even when I was thinking about meetings with the ministers at UBCM, I actually pulled out the strategic plan and used that as the basis of thinking about where this council wants to go over the next 4 years, and it was really helpful. So thank you, everybody. Okay. So next is a request for council representative to the West Coast Community Resources Society. We've had a little bit of discussion before about this, and then there's more that's been fleshed out. And I don't know if Jane, you wanted to say anything in front of this one, or?
I don't think so.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. So we have 2 things to do. First, to receive the report.
See,
Thank you, Councillor McMaster. Seconded by Councillor Blanchette. Any questions or discussion out of the report? All right, all in favor? Thank you. Motion is carried. And next, deliberation on whether we wish to appoint a non-voting representative to the society, and if so, who it would be and who their alternate would be. So we can discuss this first and then make a motion, or somebody can. Councillor McMaster?
Councillor Fick and I attended the annual meeting last week. And because I know a lot of people from Fishers and Loaves, there's no doubt in my mind that there is a bit of a disconnect between this group and Tofino. You know, they're based in Ucluelet. I think they try really hard to do things, but I think they do need some help to get better connected with Tofino and Tofino's wants. Whether that means appointing a rep or not, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure I will still go to the meetings anyway, but I think we all recognise that there are people that need help in this town. West Coast Community Resources Society is probably one of the few groups that's trying to do that, and we need to facilitate that as much as possible.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Thick?
I would concur that I've talked to a lot of people who work in various social services and positions in this town, and they all speak very highly of what their role is here. And I think perhaps there's a place for, maybe it's not forever, but maybe it's for a few years until we get some more, things are sort of operating more or less out of Ucluelet, but there's a great need here. And with all that we have coming up on our plate, with the housing report and things like that, I think they could be quite instrumental in collaborating with us. So, yeah, I'd like to hear from other people. I thought we had a policy that said we would not, but in this case, I think the work that they're doing, and regionally, I think we need to spearhead some further support for this, because what they do makes a huge difference in this community and in both, actually all the communities of our region. So this certainly bears my support.
So I hear some supportive comments, and I've even heard one councillor say that he probably would attend all the meetings anyways, which leads me to suggest that perhaps Councillor McMaster would consider being appointed as a council liaison to the society.
I don't know.
And I wonder if Councillor Thick or if anyone else would be willing to sit as an alternate. Councillor Blanchette would?
Yeah, I'd be happy to be
Okay.
on.
So the two of you can have an arm wrestle now. Just kidding. So what was that? Did you say?
Just said 2 alternates, it's fine.
Well, it just asks for one. That's our policy generally, is one, but I mean, you're welcome to go to the meetings anyways, right? You're happy to defer? Okay, thank you, Councillor Thick. So, in that case, I'll move that Councillor McMaster be appointed the liaison and that Councillor Blanchette be his alternate.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any final discussion on that? Oh, yes.
Yeah, I do think it's valuable for all of council
Mhm.
to have benefit of a presentation if they're able and willing. Then they were
Agreed.
here previously, and I found it very informative.
Mhm.
And I would like to have you know, an update if possible. So if Councillor McMaster and I communicate that, would be great.
Thank you. All right.
Would you prefer that at COW or at council? COW, there's usually more discussion.
Yeah, probably.
Okay, I'll
Thank
pass
you.
the message.
All right. Any final discussion on the motion? All in favor then? Thank you. Motion is carried. And thank you very much. All right, the statement, the 2014 Statement of Financial Information, report from Financial Services. So every year, of course, we produce what we call the SOFI report, and it's in the package and is there to be approved. Thank you,
Second.
Councillor Thurgood, and seconded by Councillor McMaster. Move approval of the SOFI report. Any questions from this? All right, I'll call a question. All in favor? Thank you. Motion carried. Yes,
Yeah,
Councillor.
I'm just thinking, this is the result of the audit as well, is it not, that we don't get the SOFI report till the audit has happened? Is that correct?
Typically, we do it after the audit is complete.
Because I just think for the public that, you know, again, we've had really excellent reports for the audit, and just want to note that.
Thank you. Okay. All right, next is the water and sewer rate amendment bylaws. And so under direction from council, staff have prepared amendments to the Tofino water utility rates and regulation bylaw and the sewer utility rates and connection regulation bylaw. And so these amendments are before us today.
I'll move the amendments 1209 and 1210.
So I think we'll do them one at a time, if
Okay.
you don't mind. And if you wouldn't mind just reading the entire.
Okay, I'll move that the
motion.
District of Tofino Water Utility Rates and Regulation Amendment Bylaw number 1209, 2015 be introduced and read a first, second and third time.
Thank you, Councillor McMaster.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Councillor Anderson. Any discussion on this? Councillor Barr.
Just for clarification, my understanding is we're still waiting for further analysis and that we'll revisit
Correct.
this decision at the end of.
In time for 2016.
2016.
That is
Thank you.
correct. Okay, any other questions or discussion on first, second, and third reading? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Thank you. Motion is carried. Councillor
And I'll
McMaster.
move that the District of Tofino Sewer Utility Rates and Connection Regulation Amendment Bylaw number 1210, 2015 be introduced and read a first, second and third time.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor McMaster, seconded by Councillor Thick. Any questions? Yes, Councillor Blanchett.
In that part, there's a table showing volumetric sewage rates that I haven't seen before, and I'm just wondering how many users are affected by that. How many agreements we have.
Okay, thank you. Nyla.
Thank you. I meant to speak to that at the beginning. So that is primarily to service TFN or through the MTSA agreement. So the analysis that we did not include those accounts that have sewer only. So the revenue requirement that we focused on is those that have water and sewer service connection. The MTSA agreement states that we are meant to charge at a rate that covers the cost of the service. So the rate structure that is currently in place ensures that we collect the revenue required to provide that service to the community. So that is why those rates will remain for 2015. We'll have further discussion on what will happen in 2016 and beyond.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone else? All right, I'll call the question then on first, second, and third reading. All in favor? Thank you. Motion is carried. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Nyla, for the work you put into that. All right, next is the Olson Road to Gibson Street Multi-Use Path Rehabilitation Project. There's a report in there from the Community Sustainability Department and a recommendation for an awarding of the contract for the work. This is a two-part recommendation, so if somebody wishes to move it, you can move both parts together. Councillor Thick?
I'll move the recommendation. Limited Contracting be awarded the contract for the 2015 Olson Road to Gibson Street multi-use path rehabilitation project for $78,575 plus GST, and that the mayor and corporate officer be authorized to execute a contract in the amount of $78,575 plus GST with Limited Contracting Limited for the 2015 Olson Road to Gibson Street multi-use path rehabilitation project.
Thank you, Councillor Thick. It's been seconded by Councillor Anderson. Any questions? Yes, Councillor Anderson.
It's not directly about this, but I'm just curious if staff, there's some other sections of the multi-use path that are getting quite degraded by root growth under them, and I'm hearing from people quite a bit that it's getting quite difficult to ride a bike along those sections, and I'm just wondering when those might be in the works to look for an upgrade as well, if at all.
I don't have an immediate answer for that. I don't believe there's anything planned for this year, but comment noted, and we'll look at it for subsequent years.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, Councillor Blanchett?
I'm just wondering if staff have any explanation or knowledge as to why there was only one bid on this, and whether that bid amount looks reasonable based on previous work that's been done, similar work.
All right, Aaron?
Most likely to do the latest of tendering the contract, which is circulated a little bit to budget process. So everybody's busy during the summertime, and so we tendered in May, and the price has been negotiated. So
Yes, my understanding is there was quite a bit of negotiation between staff and the contractor that brought the price down significantly. This is the same group that's doing the work up on 4th and Neil, correct? Okay. So there's some advantage to having them in town already. Any other questions? Councillor Thick?
No, just that I would say that I concur publicly with Councillor Anderson. I think perhaps that's the reason why we see a few more people on the street, on the highway, rather than because it is.
There's some sections of the
It's
route.
pretty dangerous, yeah.
Okay. So noted. Thank you. Okay, we'll call the question then. All in favor? Thank you. Motion's carried. Okay, next is the rezoning application, and we are here to consider third reading. We do have a staff report that details a few small amendments, and Aaron is going to lead us through this. Thank you, Aaron.
So, good morning, Mayor and Council. Today I'm going to run through the rezoning application for the Pleasance property, which is under consideration for third reading today. There's actually a number of recommendations in this report. There's recommendations for third reading for the zoning bylaw, and also the companion bylaws, the phase development agreement bylaw, and the housing bylaw. There's also additional recommendations to make a minor amendment at third reading to increase the required parking on site from 1.2 spaces per unit to 1.6 spaces per unit, to increase the lot coverage from 30 to 35%, and to limit the maximum size of a single family house to approximately 3,500 square feet. And these come directly from council at second reading. So this is going to be a fairly brief overview, and I'm just going to sort of go through the facts. I'm not going to be going through the history of the project today. I think we're all familiar with it. It's just going to sort of explain a little bit about the various bylaws, the official community plan, and why staff is recommending what we are. So the property in question, I think we're all familiar, is this property here, which is located in the Mackenzie Beach neighborhood. The proposed zoning for the lot, and currently the lot is zoned A1. It's a comprehensive development zone that would allow for a maximum of 22 multifamily units. Those multifamily units could be duplexes, it could be townhouses, it could be small single-family cluster homes as well. The parking on the site recently increased to 1.6. Is proposed to accommodate all the parking for the residents on site. There is also provisions in our bylaws to require parking to be included along the street through the subdivision process. The number of parking spots on site under the current calculations would be 35 spaces for 22 units. And if the district was to move forward with requiring the additional parking, depending on the style of parking, you could probably get approximately 8 parallel parking spaces, or perhaps a number more if you were angle parking. It should be noted that the parking standards meet Canadian averages for parking and more than the district averages, and the 1.6 spots are almost double what a bylaw actually requires for multifamily units. Traffic for the property, traffic at this intersection will increase. We had a traffic study done a number of years ago, and it indicated an increase, but a very minor increase in the amount of traffic. The majority of that traffic would be directed towards the entrance, which would be somewhere along this frontage here. I'd like to make the point that although it's going to increase traffic, increasing traffic does not make the intersection more dangerous. It just makes it more busy. It's going to be a busier intersection, and there's no getting around that. As staff went through the zoning and the phase development agreements, the housing bylaws, we tried to consider from the planning department the overall community goals. But within that, we tried also to mitigate concerns of the adjacent neighborhoods, because development has changed and change is difficult. The mitigation that we've attempted to do is to receive a park from the developer along the south side. This park is adjacent Helson Drive and a property here that's zoned C4A, which is a very intensive commercial use, similarly to the Live to Surf complex. There's also an existing district park on this side of the property, which buffers the properties to the north. And this was existing. This wasn't something staff dreamt up. It was already there. Surrounding the property, staff has requested and received in the phase development agreement a conservation buffer of about 5 meters, or about 15 feet around the area to further buffer the adjacent properties. The immediate adjacent properties would be this house here, which would be adjacent to the district park. We have a vacant lot currently here and a lot here. This property is sort of buffered on 2 zones by it. What I'm trying to explain is that we've attempted to try to mitigate some of the issues, but not to explain them away. There will be impacts to the neighbors. That is just a factor of development. The first companion bylaw, the second bylaw to discuss is the phase development agreement bylaw, and in that bylaw we formulated our agreements and we've encapsulated them in covenants. And the major agreements that we've worked out are requirements for stormwater conveyance, development of the multi-use path through the property rather than currently on the highway, the gifting of the parkland to the south, the repair of the fish stream that goes through this small creek here, and a housing agreement. All of these amenities are drawn from provisions within the official community plan. The housing bylaw is a third document, and it sets out what the districts can receive in terms of housing to help address the affordable housing issues. So the district will receive 1 unit that gets built out of the 22, and a second unit will have a covenant placed on it restricting future sales. The remaining 20 units will be market condos or townhouses or single-family homes, depending on what gets built. So going back to what I said earlier, as a planner, I'm trying to look at the broad goals of the communities. And the way that I do that primarily is to go back to the official community plan, which is a compilation of the wishes and desires and the dreams of Tofino. That document This has been, was adopted in 2002 and renewed in 2013. And in that document, it talks about the Mackenzie neighborhood as being an area of growth. And it actually specifically sets out the density targets for that area. This property, these 22 units, meet those these density targets. That is why this project has gotten as far as it's gone, because it meets a number of OCP goals. And as a planner, that's what I'm looking for. It also supports smart growth provisions in the OCP. So the OCP talks a lot about smart growth, and I'd like to read one section of that with relation to smart growth. The district shall endorse and promote smart growth principles in new development and redevelopment of existing development, including undertaking development in a compact fashion, supporting mixed-use development, promoting alternative design development standards, protecting sensitive environmental areas, reducing detrimental economic, environmental, and social effects of development, promoting multimodal forms of transportation, integrating open space into daily living, and promoting urban containment. It is my suggestion and my recommendation that this project does all of that. That this is a good project. It provides it will provide a much needed housing stock for the district. If approved, this proposal will provide some relief to our affordable housing issues and help Tofino in this respect. And that is what I have.
Thank you very much, Aaron. Okay, Council, do you have any questions for Aaron? Perhaps first just to ask you if they're specific to the amendments that have been suggested. Okay, so what we have before us are 3 recommendations to consider. First is a recommendation around amendment at second reading with some of the things that Aaron has spoken about. And that would encompass third, so it would be an amendment at second reading and third reading, and the receipt of the report with the rezoning, the public hearing, public comments. That's a 3-part recommendation that appears. The second part of our discussion is around the phased development bylaw, third reading, and then the third part of our discussion would be around the housing agreement bylaw at third reading. So there are 3 things to consider here. Councillor Anderson.
I did have one question, and we can just go back a little bit. The driveway entrance into the entire unit, you mentioned it just would be somewhere along there. Would that be referred to Ministry of Transportation and so on? And I'm concerned that it, and I don't think it could go any other way, but did the traffic study determine where that might go, or how far back from the highway it should be? Or is that the Ministry of Transportation's call on that? What ultimately determines where that is safe to put and where it has the least impact on neighbors?
So the way that would work would be at time of subdivision, the approving one of the major aspects of the approving officer's position is to consider access. Because of the nearness of the property to the Ministry of Transportation, there would most likely be a referral from our approving officer to the Ministry of Transportation. They would provide some sort of requirements, would probably say something like needs to be 4.5 meters away from the highway, and then from that, the subdivision would get developed. So it wouldn't be, developer A going out and saying, I want my thing here and down. It'll go through the process of both our approving officer and most likely the ministry.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Blanchette first, and then we'll come to Councillor Cook.
Last time this came up, I expressed some concerns that a developer might build 1 or 2 giant houses. And with the way it's reworded here, it seems to me that the developer could build at a basic minimum 4 houses, 2 affordable ones at 600 square feet or more, and then 2 what I consider a giant house, 3,500 square foot houses. That would be possible, like just 2 3,500 square foots and then 2 affordable units.
That's correct.
That would be possible.
Yes.
And all that's standing between that scenario or all that's inhibiting that scenario is just the economics of it, that it wouldn't make sense to do so.
Correct.
Because if that were to happen, then our whole thrust toward affordable housing and higher density would be blown out of the water, essentially.
Well, not only be blown out of the water, we would have an opportunity where we'd have half of the housing built being affordable. So we'd have 50%. I mean, the unit numbers, not for the percentages there. We'd have a stream protected. We'd have a multi-use path developed. We'd have parking in front of that area developed. We'd have a stormwater plan in place. The phase development agreement doesn't get people out of that. So you're entirely correct, though. If somebody wanted to come in and build 4 houses, if they wanted to build 2 houses and give one away, and they could do that as well. Generally, density increases the value of property, the number of units you could build. So, but it would be ultimately dictated by the market.
Right. Because in my eyes, this is the affordable aspect of this is not just the 2 designated affordable houses, but that they're small, at least as presented, as we're thinking of them now. They're small, and that automatically makes them affordable on a per square foot basis. So I wouldn't want to lose that aspect of it.
Councillor Hick.
Yeah, I had 2 concerns from last time, one of which seems to have been addressed in this amendment, in that for each dwelling unit, 1.6 parking spaces shall be provided. But when I went to the diagram, the diagram wasn't in any way, shape, or form changed, and I hear today in the report that best case scenario along Hellison, we could, with the way the lot lines are drawn and the road is structured, we could get 8 along Hellison. Is that correct?
Approximately, yes.
So if we can get 8 along Hellison, if we still need 5, and I don't see anywhere in the diagram where that would be that it would be.
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Maybe,
So what I'm saying is that in the amendment, we're being asked to consider this, that we approve 1.6. But what I'm saying is in the diagram, I don't see any way that is captured.
So the diagram is not referenced in the zoning bylaw. The zoning bylaw includes the text, and then this amendment, which sort of outlines the entire area. Any drawings in the phase development agreement, the one that I think you're talking about is the 11 duplexes, is conceptual. It will have nothing. They'll have to meet the zoning bylaw provisions, not what's on that diagram.
Right.
so the diagram doesn't change because it's a concept only and it's only upon the
I guess my concern
development.
is that I don't see a physical way that we can capture 13 spaces. That's just, I'm going to just put that out there. And secondly, the other thing, and I just read, and I know we haven't adopted it yet, but I just read the housing report that we received, and we're going to speak about that on July the 6th. But one of the things that I heard in the public hearing from the residents was a concern that there would not be vacation rentals. And on page 47 of the housing study, although not yet adopted, the main concern of the employers, and I quote, is conversion of rental housing to short-term vacation rentals. And I just want to know how we're going to capture that
So
with certainty for such a development if it were to go ahead.
the certainty is the zoning bylaw for me, as a planner. I'm not a bylaw enforcement officer. I don't run the bylaw department. The uses permitted in that zone include townhouse dwellings or groups of such dwellings, cluster housing dwellings or groups of such dwellings, 2-family dwellings or groups of such dwellings, multiple family dwellings or groups of such dwellings, and accessory buildings and uses in accordance with section 4.6. What it does, so by their absence, there's no short-term rental permitted in there, there's no home occupations permitted in there, there's no bed and breakfast permitted in there. And so going forward, if someone was to develop this property at some time in the future, it would be on the district's responsibility to enforce that zoning once they're built. But we have this is the same as for many of our bylaws. In the end, it falls back to us to enforce our bylaws, which is not you can't build that into a zoning bylaw.
Correct, it's not, the zoning bylaw doesn't address those.
Yeah, it addresses the uses, so you're not allowed to
Yeah.
do it, so
But it-
you could prosecute someone on that basis,
Mhm.
but I can't, I can't prevent people doing what they're gonna do.
Unless you enforce it. Yes, thank you very much. Okay. Councillor Bart.
Thank you. I'm just a bit confused by this last exchange because I believe the Shore had a covenant on it that no B&B, I mean, they had to apply for vacation rental rezoning that didn't go anywhere, but like, is because of the fact that we're silent on it, it just implies that, you know, it can be whatever use from a home.
So I think that's an argument
Business.
outside of this meeting, so the Shore is not zoned for short-term rentals. If there's short-term rental use occurring out of that, then one would expect the complaints to be generated by the community or for bylaw to do an investigation on that. It doesn't impact future development.
So my point is that what the community is saying is that they don't want places rezoned that leave the door open to intensive short-term rental use, and that's the concern.
And
And
the
this
answer, I
does not.
think, is that it is back on the district to enforce the zoning bylaw, just like, for example, use the RM's townhomes. Short-term rental is not allowed. It is on us to ensure that that is the case. It's not, the provisions of the zoning do not, they speak to whether that use is permitted or not. The enforcement of that zoning is a conversation outside of this consideration of amendments and third reading.
And so the other item that I was interested in getting some comment on, I did discuss this briefly with the CAO, was, you know, we've had situations, and I've sat on council where zoning was passed through, you know, previous councils, and the property has sat there for a very long time, but, you know, it's sitting there with a zoning that is more intensive than what has been reflected through, say, the OCP and such. One of them is we have a very intensive zone just right across the street, and this technically, as far as I recall, is not actually in the Mackenzie Beach neighborhood, but maybe it is. Anyway, so I'm just wondering about, as a tool to ensure that that there's an understanding that the agreement is both ways as far as the zoning goes, is you have this as zoning, deliver what is said to be delivered, and otherwise it expires at a certain period of time, and that it would have a life of, say, 10 years, that after which the zoning reverts to, and I'm just wondering about the implications of that.
So, phase development agreement that we're contemplating the first time is our first phase development agreement with Tofino, and it contemplates exactly that. It has a provision for a 10-year time period. If this is not developed in 10 years, then what happens is the district can further amend, review, or modify the effect of the zoning bylaw amendment. So it can either go back what it was, we can review it, we can amend it. We can also do it in between that 10 years for cause. So if somebody is trying to build something without providing the amenities on the schedule that we worked out, we can also review it at that time as well. The phase development agreements are meant to provide certainty to both the district and to the developer.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Councillor Thurgood.
I'm glad to see the increase in parking from 1.2 to 1.6. That increase, or that 1.6 or 35 spots, are going to be within the property boundaries. My only concern is guest parking, visitor parking, people coming for dinner at somebody's house that gets built. And the suggestion, I think I heard you say, is that they probably be on Ellison Road.
Yeah, I think the basic analogy would be that if somebody comes to my house for dinner, I have 2 parking spots for my own car. So maybe one guest parks there and the rest park on the streets. And I think that's common for most areas.
Yeah.
It would be the same for multifamily area, but we could actually require the developer through the subdivision to actually build those spots on the road. And that would serve, as it does in most neighborhoods, places for people to come back and forth.
Okay. Councillor Blanchett?
I just want to reiterate that I'm sensitive to some of the comments we heard at the public hearing about this turning into a short-term vacation rental, and that the district can do something about that by enforcing its bylaws. And I, for one, am very much in favor of enforcing our short-term bylaw rentals. My fear with this property is that it turns into, rather than affordable housing for local residents, it turns into affordable cottages for out-of-town owners. But I don't think there's anything we can do about that. We can, however, address the short-term rental issue.
Yes, we can. Thank you. Okay. So I'd like to ask council to consider the first recommendation then.
I'll move that recommendation.
Okay.
To read it?
Yeah, actually, I wouldn't mind if you did, please, read the full thing.
I would move that the District of Tofino map and, am I reading the right one?
Mhm.
Yes, map and text amendment bylaw number 1131, 210 be further amended at second reading by replacing 41J.5.1 with, quote, the maximum lot coverage for all buildings is 35%, end quote. Replacing 41J.8.1 with, quote, for each dwelling unit, 1.6 parking spaces shall be provided, end quote. And adding to 41J.4, quote, 3. The maximum residential floor area per dwelling unit shall be 325 meters squared, bracket 3,498 feet squared, close bracket, end quote. And that District of Tofino map and text amendment bylaw number 1131, 2010 be read a third time as amended, and that the report attached as Appendix 5 to the staff report, quote, rezoning application Pleasance 1140 Pacific Rim Highway, end quote, dated July 23rd, 2015, containing a summary of the nature of the representations respecting bylaw 1131, 2010 that were made at the hearing, be received by council and maintained as a public record.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Thick.
Yeah, it's June 23rd.
Was that seconded?
I'm just making a comment on
Okay,
it.
so you're not seconding.
Yeah, I'm just saying that it's June, not July.
Okay, thank you. Is there a
I'll
second?
second.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded, the amendments, the third reading, and the receipt of the public hearing comments. I invite discussion. Would anybody wish to speak to how they intend to vote? So we can get some discussion on the table. Please, thank you. Councillor Burke.
Yeah, I will vote in favor of it. I know the concerns around the intensity of the development, but I am in agreement with our Director of Community Sustainability that these kinds of determinations have been made through a very intensive process in the OCP and OCP review. And, you know, we just are aware, you know, I think overall in the community that housing is a pressing need. And I just hope this will go ahead as planned and that housing will be created.
Thank you, Councillor Burke. Anyone else? Councillor McMaster.
Yeah, I'll vote in favour of it. I am concerned about the vacation rental argument, and maybe this will prompt a discussion about how we're going to try and enforce that.
Thank you. Anyone else?
To say I'm in favor of it, I think this has been hammered out as well as can possibly be. It's been long in the process, and I'd echo the feelings on vacation rental uses.
Thank you. Councillor Thurdy.
I'm going to be voting in favor of it. However, I do still have a concern about guest or visitor parking being pushed onto Allison Road. I prefer it to be within the confines of the property line, but so be it.
Okay, thank you. All right, if there isn't any final discussion or comments, I'll call the question then. All in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Thank you, the motion carries. All right, the second part of this is third reading for the District of Tofino Phased Development Bylaw.
Okay, I can make the motion.
Please, thank you.
That District of Tofino Phase Development Bylaw 1191 to 2014 be read a third time, and that the report attached is Appendix 4 to the staff report, rezoning application, Pleasance, 1140 Pacific Rim Highway, dated June 23rd, 2015, containing a summary of the nature of the representations respecting bylaw 1191-2014 that were made at the hearing, be received by council and maintained as a public record.
Second.
Thank you. Moved and seconded by Councillors Bart and McMaster. Any discussion on this? Yes, Councillor Blanchette.
I'm looking forward to seeing how this plays out as our first phase development, or our first PDA. Just that question to the planner, is this, because I'm interested in making Tofino a bit more development friendly. I think we have a reputation for not being friendly to developers, even ones who want to do things that are good for the community. So is this PDA in your eyes something that a developer will look favorably upon and want to engage with?
From my limited experience with it, I'm going to say yes. I've spoken to the CEO about it a number of times, and it was, I think, the tool most used in Whistler. It sets things out quite clear, and it gives a framework for the negotiations. So we're not talking outside of the legislative authority that we have. So we can talk about zoning under local government act. We can talk about amenities and the PDA and housing under the housing section. So I think it's clean, and if introduced at the beginning of the process, should provide that framework for conducive negotiations.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, I'll call the question then. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. And the third part of this is the District of Tofino Housing Agreement Bylaw 1190.
I'll move that the District Tofino Housing Agreement Bylaw number 1190, 2014 be read a third time.
Second.
Thank you. Moved and seconded by Councillors Anderson and McMaster. Any questions on this? Councillor Blanchette.
I recall from the previous time this was before council that this is based on what they're using in Whistler. Is that correct?
It's a combination of what Whistler uses and what the documents that the Tofino Housing Authority had also put together, which were based on the Whistler model. So it's very similar.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, just reading through it, I think it's going to need some work. I think as we go forward. In particular, there's a requirement there that for anybody to be a qualified person to live in this affordable housing or to buy this affordable housing, they have to have been in Tofino for a minimum of 5 years as a permanent resident. And I know several people who've come and gone in terms of 5 years and left because of the affordable housing. I'm not going to propose that be changed for this. This is only one unit we're talking about, and I'm sure we can find somebody who's been here for 5 years to fill it if it gets built. But I think going forward, as we develop our affordable housing strategies, I think we should, the group that pushes that forward should definitely be taking a very close look at this contract.
If I could just add to that, so what the Whistler Housing Authority does is they develop these individually for each of their properties, and they evolve. So they change over time based on what's happened in the courts, how people have tried to find the ways around it. And so they sort of evolve and get different each time. This one is relatively broad, and the reason it's relatively broad is because we don't have an authority to manage it. And so thinking about staff, resources, and the time it would take to do a lot of the work, it's intentionally a little bit broad and a little bit clunky. For that reason, we don't have someone on it all the time. So it would be great if at some point we had something like an authority or a nonprofit group running housing, and then we would be working with that group to sort of fine tune it per property.
Okay, any other questions? I'll call the question then. Or Councillor,
Yeah,
yeah.
just Yeah, I disagree with Councillor Blanchett on that, and I haven't compared this document with the housing, because we just received that report and haven't adopted it yet, but I would like to see the two more closely aligned, because what I'm hearing is being said and what I've read, it maybe doesn't align with what we're about to pass, according to the document we are still about to pass. So you're right, I think that we need, maybe this is a good first step, but I don't think that the two are so far closely aligned as they should be or could be.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'm going to call the question on this motion then. All in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? None? Thank you. Motion's carried. Thank you very much. I just want to make a few closing comments on this. To have passed third reading, we know that this proposal has been before different councils and before the District of Tofino for a very long time. And an incredible amount of work has gone into this on the part of the proponents, the part of the staff, on the part of the community, and the part of council. And these decisions are not always easy to make. But I am glad to see the direction council has picked to go in this. I think that this proposal moves us in the direction that this council wishes to go with the community. The fact that it is supported by the OCP, which is a guiding document that has had so much input from the community, is very meaningful. I understand that when we make decisions like this, that there are people who feel very directly affected and who may be unhappy. And that is part of what makes our job really difficult. But nonetheless, I just want to commend everybody for the really sincere thought and discussion that's been put into this, and to the staff for bringing us to this point, and the community and the proponents for bringing us to this point. And it's not over yet. We have adoption yet to consider. And I just want to remind everybody in the room, the council cannot receive new information about this proposal until after it's adopted. So that's the way that it goes. After public hearing, we don't hear any more public feedback. So thank you very much, everybody. Okay. Anyone else? Yes. Yes. Okay. So our next report, which I guess Aaron can just stay standing for, is the downtown parking policy. Oh, I think Councillor Fick's going to move to recess for 2 minutes. Is there a seconder? Councillor McMaster, all in favor? Thank you. Okay, we'll just recess for 2 minutes. Thank you.
I'm sure you can give me your comments.
Okay.
What?
Good to go again?
Like,
All right.
Thank you.
Take it away, Aaron. Thank you.
Great. So my next presentation is to bring back to council the downtown parking policy. I'm going to provide a very brief presentation, 5 slides. So at I believe it was April 27th, council made some recommendations to the policy, about the policy, specifically respecting the parking time limits on the map portion of the policy. And those changes have been made at this point. So the changes that were made were there's no seasonal parking, a 15-minute loading zone for the market vendors, to reposition the Coast Guard parking to accurately reflect where the Coast Guard actually is located, to change the 1-hour parking to 2-hour, to provide 4-hour parking around the village green, the Centennial permit area to be reduced in size a little bit and added 4-hour parking so people can enjoy the Centennial Park. A 2-hour spot at the Children's Center for people to attend meetings at the facility, and a 50-minute parking in front of the bank, so along Cameron Street as well as along First Street.
Sorry, what do you mean Centennial permit to 4 hours?
So one of the suggestions was that we had assigned permit parking all the way down First Street, adjacent Centennial, and some of that was taken out, and 4-hour spots were put there instead. So here's a map again. It hasn't changed much other than what I just explained. I'll be happy to come back to this during the discussion portion of the meeting. I also approached the Chamber of Commerce for their suggestion. They came back with 3 suggestions. They suggested 4-hour parking all over downtown or clear signage. This has not been introduced into the parking bylaw. I'm just bringing back the feedback. They suggest that downtown RV parking be continued in the lot adjacent to the district offices. And they also noted that proper signage and communications with the business community will be the keys to the success of any plan. And again, these have not been adopted into the current plan, the current policy. So the balance of the policy, I also try to remember that this map is one, it's a contentious piece, but it's one piece of actually quite a larger policy. So the remaining policy it hasn't been changed. There were a number of issues brought up during our CAL meeting that were more actions than have actually policy work. That would include things such as signage for lanes to get people to come into our back alleys to park in the business parking behind buildings, and boat trailer parking. So that is something that staff who are responsible for implementation will consider at that time. Now it's the last word, so I'm done.
Okay, thank you. So we have the policy before us, and we're being asked to consider this as a high-level policy document with the understanding that the specific implementation can do the tweaks and adjustments that may need to happen at certain sites.
Correct.
Is that correct?
And
Okay.
I should preface my.
And I wanted to raise, just late last night, some of council may have not seen it yet, we received an email from a homeowner concerned about parking, because I gather there's not parking on the lot, but that the homeowner is using a portion of the street there, and so that kind of on a case-by-case specific basis, there's opportunities for staff to address that with different property owners.
Exactly. So this
Okay.
again, even though there's a map and it shows lines,
Yes.
there's some places where the parking can't happen at this point either. So as implementation occurs, as the signs are installed, and as we talk to properties, things may change a little bit. So, or they may change a lot.
But this is the general
This is the general
overview.
policy, and
Okay.
was meant to be based on. Though it is not meant. It is based on adjacent land use.
Thank you.
With a few tweaks.
Okay. All right. Questions from council? Councillor Barton?
Yeah, thank you. So what about the feedback from the chamber, the idea of just making it all 4-hour zones? What was your thinking on that? We asked for their feedback, and that's what we got.
So I guess from my perspective, the intent of the parking policy is generally to encourage turnover. And so if I look back at the data, from 11 to 3 o'clock, which is 4 hours, is a busy time of parking throughout the year. If we want parking to turn over in areas that are adjacent to commercial businesses, then we generally want to make that time period shorter, if that's the intent, and that was the intent of the policy. So would 4 hours work overall downtown? It might work, but it wasn't the direction that this policy was based on.
So, I think what's happened though from the chamber is that they've maybe reflected sort of their experience of reality, what happens on the ground, that people, we encourage people to walk around town. We're making our streets more pedestrian friendly. So what we're saying at the other hand is you only get to park here for 2 hours, and then we want you back in your car to move your car to somewhere else. And you know, if the experience of the retail side of the downtown is to have people come to the downtown, do their business activities or shopping or such, that if they don't need it for 4 hours, they'll move on. But if they do, then chances are that they patronize the businesses in the downtown core, as long as the 4 hours or so. That's the first time I've heard it, but I actually quite like it. The other concern I have is around the nighttime. Also the permit parking, the 8-hour zones being also permit parking, and I just think that shouldn't be a blanket thing. We still have 8-hour zones? No, we don't have 8-hour zones, sorry. Okay, so that the parking is in effect between, you know, the time in the morning and time in the evening, because as long as people's cars move within that time frame, there's nothing happening at night. They should be able to leave their cars overnight if they're, you know, staying in some of the accommodations or going off to their flow homes or whatever it is, as long as they're off the street in the daytime, within that time frame. So I just thinking about, how does this reflect reality and how
So-
people use the space?
So to the first topic, I think, we've heard from the chamber that they want 4 hours everywhere, but I've also heard a lot of people wanting 15-minute turnover and 1 hour turnover and 2 hour from individual businesses. And what, again, I tried to do with this project was to look at land use and just go back to that. And whether it's 2 hour, 1 hour, 3 hour, 4 hour, it was just trying to generally reflect that. And I understand tweaks need to be made because we live in a real world. And I understand where you're coming from with the 4 hours. I've said it before council that, for me, Tofino parking is not like a mall that you do park and stuff like that. But it actually doesn't work for everybody. And so, and we do want to try to encourage that turnover as much as we can. So I should also, the council also suggested, in the same sentence, suggested 4 hours overall downtown or clear signage. So if there's clear signage, they actually put an or in that sentence. And so it said 4 hours or clear signage. So for me, we could probably address some of the concerns of the chamber through clear signage. The second point, there'll be a parking, hour limit, and then to address things like troublesome overnight camping, we have a camping bylaw, so signs could be developed that say no camping, and then.
Yeah, I don't mean for that.
No, I'm just saying that if we wanted to enforce problem cars at night, we have a way to deal with that, and generally we don't have by-officers doing parking in the evenings or the late evenings.
Thank you. Any other questions for Aaron? Councillor Bontet.
In order to thoroughly sign this proposed scheme, how many signs are we talking about, and what cost roughly? Have you sussed that out?
I have not. I have a count of parking signs in my office on my maps, but I don't have that in my brain today. And I don't generally take care of parking invitation or signage. And I think what I'm, with this policy and with introductions is just this clear definition. The planning department is responsible for policy. This is how we're going to do it. When we get to implementation, we're looking to public works, to possibly bylaw, to put that implementation factor in. Not to say that I couldn't be planning for the cost. I haven't in this case.
My questions were around implementation. I remember one time we changed the parking regulations for downtown when I was on council, and it actually took about 3 or 4 months to get the signage. So I don't know, maybe it's quicker now, but I'd like to hear about a couple parts of implementation. One about sort of the time frame on it. Will it all happen at once? Will it be in phase? I have particular interest to know how the permit parking is going to work, and how we're going to communicate that to those who use the permit parking, because there's some significant changes in that. Some's the same, but some seems to be different. So, and then sort of that, to me, the implementation sort of goes not only with just getting the signs up, but there'd be some new enforcement, I imagine, around that. So just how does that all play out, or is there a plan, or should there be a plan?
So all of this is in front of us. There is no plan. There's no work been done past putting a policy forward to council to approve. Once the policy approved, then we can actually start working on action. So planning for purchasing signs, who's going to put them in, when they're going to put them in, how it's going to work with enforcement. Realistically, this is not going to happen, and I can't imagine signs going in the ground before fall at this point. This was meant to come to council in early spring and be rolled out for the summer because of scheduling council meetings and other issues. We're to today before we've actually adopted the policy. So we have a general idea of what we need to do. We have a general idea how long it takes to order signs. But I couldn't give you any sort of detail about exactly what's going to happen. But knowing what I know about how these things work, we're probably into the fall before signs are hitting the ground, I imagine.
And just one other question. There was, I believe last summer, a lot of work done around parking in terms of collecting data and stuff. And so I'm just wondering how closely this reflects some of that work.
It's all based on it. So the policy that I introduced to council and the map was based on the parking data we did in the last couple of years and the 1999 parking data, which, apart from the amount, actually reflect each other, their importance. And then obviously we've made a little bit of amendments at the council chamber to address a number of issues. But other than that, it's based off of parking counts.
Councillor Thurgood.
The one area I have concerns about is on Main Street. At first, what is now the permit parking facing the house, and then I see that's going to be changed to a 4-hour parking. Do you foresee difficulties communicating that change to the permit parking people?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, given the timeline that's kind of being presented, I can see that provides the opportunity to, I mean, if it really didn't roll out till fall,
Well,
and we're undertaking the changes on Main Street this fall, and our biggest crunch with offshore owners of cars is in the summer.
I'm not sure how many spots are there now, like currently on Main Street, for the permit parking. I would guess around 10. They're not losing any spots, they're just gonna be moved to other.
Just being shifted.
Yeah, I mean, the way that was presented to council is that there's an additional spots being created in the sense that all this 4-hour spots down First Street will be permit parking. Not to say that people will use it, because it is more like an 8-minute walk up a hill and then down a hill, and vice versa. But the actual numbers actually increase and actually almost reflect the number of permits we're currently issuing. So it's about 220 permit spots-ish, and we're issuing about 225 permits at this point. So I should also, just for everybody's information, this is not perfect, but it's a plan based on something. Our previous plan was based on parking time, the big pay parking randomly placed throughout the community, and previous to that, I don't know if we had a plan. So this is just somewhere to start from, to see how it rolls out. We have the pressure relief valve of the implementation in the sense that the CAO and the bylaw officers have authority to install signage. So this, again, just a thing, is a general policy. We're going to probably stick to it because we've done the work on it. But if there are certain issues in certain parts of the district that come up out of the blue, or something changes, we do have the authority to address it. And again, it's a policy rather than bylaws. We're not breaking our bylaws to do so.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Fick?
Yeah, I can see that there's a real headache and a lot of work that's gone into this, so thank you for that. And yeah, I think it's going to be a compromise anyway we slice it. I mean, I heard what the chamber said. I liked what he said. I remember getting the student from, was it a year or two ago, and all the work that he did, and yeah, so I just commend you for trying to put all these things together and into one map. I guess, like Councillor Anderson or someone said, that, I mean, it's only as good as the implementation or the enforcement of it, and I echo those comments. And I just want to flag that I have some real concerns about RV parking, and I don't have a solution for that, as I'm sure nobody else does at this moment, but I have some real concerns about that, and how we as a town are how are we gonna deal with that. And I think this is a good first step, but I do really, really feel that it is important that this summer we get the message out to those campgrounds where those RVs are, so that they are encouraged, the people there are encouraged to take the bus into town and back out of town. Because when we have big buses, as was the case yesterday, or, you know, taking up 3 spots, or RVs taking up 2, I mean, it impacts everybody, residents, visitors, and I don't think it's a good thing. So I'm just saying that I think we've got a little bit more work to do on that, but I would really love to see us this summer is to somehow really push the availability of the shuttle, and the availability of the shuttle to the RV and the campgrounds. So thank you for the work that you've put into this.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it's a plan. I mean, I don't think it matters what plan you come up with in Tofino. It's going to upset some people, I think. I'm worried about when you start making exceptions for people, there'll be so many applicants to make an exception that the plan just goes out the window. Well, I think we'll face that. I've already had some complaints about parking at the west end of Campbell Street with the permit parking. So big backpackers down there. So I think that needs to be looked at a little bit. I think we've got to start somewhere. So.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, I'm just wondering about ticketing, and this might not cover that off, but say you've got visitors coming downtown and they happen to be 4.5 hours, and it just happens that bylaw is there. Do we still have that practice where if you pay within a certain period of time, it's like $10 or something?
I believe we do. I have to defer to Jane, but I believe we have that in place.
There's a discount with the notice, bylaw notice, if you pay it within, I can't remember how many days. Could be 3 days.
Yeah, and
I'd have to check.
Yeah, okay.
But the principle is there.
Yeah.
Right. So council, I'll just ask you to consider the recommendation before you.
No motion on the floor.
Nope.
I'll move the recommendation.
Okay, so moved by Councillor Fick and seconded by Councillor McMaster that the District of Tofino Downtown Core Parking Policy 2012 be repealed, and that the District of Tofino Downtown Parking Policy 2015 attached as Appendix 2 to the staff report Downtown Parking Policy dated June 23rd, 2015 be adopted. Any final discussion on this? Yes, Councillor Blanchett.
Just for clarification, the proposed parking scheme includes the map that's at the end of the long list of points.
The policy does, yes.
Yes.
Anyone else? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Thank you. Motion carried. Okay, special event permit application, Queen of the Peak.
Move the recommendation.
Second.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor McMaster, seconded by Councillor Thurgood. That staff be authorized to issue a special event permit for the use of the Cox Bay or North Chesterton parking lots to organizers of the Queen of the Peak event scheduled to be held October 2nd to 4th, 2015, including the following conditions to the satisfaction of the manager of RMR Services: permission from the Ministry of Natural Resource Operations to use the foreshore, provision of a refundable damage deposit of $1,000, provision of an event traffic management plan 30 days before the event, and provision of a certificate of insurance naming the District of Tofino as an additional insured. Any questions on this? Councillor Thick?
Yeah, I'm just thinking about what has transpired with the last 2 contests and wondering if we can we help or can we insist about the shuttle, because we're talking about the shuttle. And Julie, if for example the contest is at North Chesterman's, I don't want all of North Chesterman's writing to us the next week and saying, what are you guys doing? You know, are we going to assist in a shuttle? Are we going to insist that they have a shuttle? Because if it's at Cox Bay, well, the parking, it's okay. And maybe they need some management about that. But if it's at North Chesterman's, which is quite likely at that time of year, it's going to be pretty chaotic in terms of parking for that. So I just have a question about the shuttle before we move the recommendation.
Bob, maybe I'll just look to you and ask if that could be incorporated into the event traffic management plan that they would have to submit.
It could indeed.
Okay,
I think that would be really helpful for everyone.
agreed. All right. Any other other discussion? Yes?
I say, I think one of the times it was chaotic at North Chestmont was when they suddenly switched on the morning of the event from Cox to North Chestmont. And the people got down there before the people that were looking after parking. So people were already parked before the people from Cox Bay got moved down. So
That's
that
good
probably
feedback.
is, I think, I assume they're taking care of that now.
Okay. I think we can make sure that April gets that feedback too. Yeah, okay. Any other discussion? Yeah, I'll call the question then. All in favor? Thank you. Motion carried. Yeah, I missed it. We did it. Up. Okay, under new business, I'll speak to this if I have a seconder, but I did prepare a notice of motion that staff prepare a report to council with recommendations on eradication strategies for the Japanese knotweed patch at Leighton Way and Arnett Street.
Seconded?
Thank you, Councillor Bart. So, I'm not trying to make a make-work project here, but I have some experience with this plant and with invasive species in general, and I've been talking to a couple of the local residents. Bob and I have had a few conversations about it too. Japanese knotweed is something that if it gets out of hand, it can crack foundations, it can crack roads, it can undermine the roadbed. And in my opinion, this is something we really need to get on top of. There are a couple of other knotweed patches in town, and they are on school district property. So I think if the District of Tofino is able to consider this and prepare a reasonable strategy for dealing with it, then we can pass that recommendation on to the school district and see it taken care of there. My biggest concern about Japanese knotweed is that if it gets schwacked down by an unsuspecting worker, those little tiny pieces get distributed places and a new patch arises. This plant is vicious. Yes, Councillor Blanchett?
CBC did a whole segment, a 20-minute segment on it, and it's endemic in England, where it is severely affecting property values,
Yes.
even adjacent property values. So yes, I'm very much in favor of getting on top of this. I've looked at that patch, and it's the size of a small car already, and it's pretty formidable.
In England, it's forbidden to whack it down yourself. You have to get
You have to.
someone.
Anyone else? Okay.
Does staff have any experience with something like this?
I know that this was an issue that came up in Whistler, and Whistler Environmental Services Division, there was one individual who was responsible for things like this, who was quite green in the environmental sense, and I was quite surprised when she came to council and recommended that there be a departure from our policy of not using pesticides.
Yeah.
You know, so where I expect that this will go, and we'll be looking to use pesticides to get rid of this.
Agreed. Stem
Digging
injection.
it up, which is illegal, we would never get there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, call the question and all in favor? Thank you. Motion carried. Thank you, everybody. Okay, any questions from the public? Benno, yes.
Regarding the new downtown parking policy, I don't know if it has any effect. I can do handstands here, but no one seems to listen to me. I've been involved for 3 years with all the meetings regarding parking and whatnot. We've had 2-hour parking in front of our business. It seems to work great. The business owners on that block are very satisfied with it. The residents that live there are very satisfied with it. This whole new policy is just based on like 2 days of research of Mr. Rogers running around town, writing down license plates numbers, coming to a conclusion that the busy time is between 11 and 3. Even during the last meeting when the policy was brought forward, there were some councillors who also didn't agree with the 10 to 4 time limit to put like a 4-hour parking term on it. Today I don't hear anything back of it. It is a completely useless thing to put on a sign 10 a.m. till 4 p.m. and then put a 4-hour parking zone in it. Anybody after 11 a.m. or 11:30 can park their car and leave their car till the next day, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It's just, I just don't get that. You guys don't get it. It is just so incredible frustrating to having to deal with this all the time. It's been 2.5 weeks already in front of our business without signage. It's still not up, right?
Thank you.
I just don't get it.
Okay, thank you for your feedback.
I was
Andrew?
also wondering about the market 15-minute loading zone, like according to the map, that's Monday to Friday. The market is on Saturday, like, doesn't make any sense either.
Okay, thank you. We'll look at that. Thank you.
Yeah, but
And
can I,
you have-
today, could I get today an answer from staff or mayor and council if we can get 2-hour parking signs back in front of our business? It's been 2.5 weeks now. Can we please get parking regulations that just make sense? Put 2-hour
Put the signs
parking
back
back
up.
up there.
Okay, thank you. And I am going to ask our CAO to take care of that because he has the authority to do so. So yes,
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, Andrew, any questions?
No.
Okay. All right, then I'll ask somebody to read the in-camera motion, please. Councillor Zick?
That the meeting be closed to the public pursuant to section 91, B, C, and E of the community charter to discuss matters relating to personal information about an individual who is being considered for an award or honor, employee relations, the acquisition, disposition, or expropriation of land or improvements.
Second.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. Motion carried.